talking about cinematography next, okay? So when we talk about cinematography, we are talking about all the elements in the frame. So for us, it's lighting, costume, set design, and the overall color palette, all right? So it's not just the photography of it, it's everything that ends up inside the image. In our particular film that we're watching this week, again, The Neighbor's Window, notice how the couple at the beginning of the movie, they wear pretty monochromatic, darker tones. And it's all very kind of dull material and things like that. But when they're looking at their neighbors, you see them live this really fancy life. It's a little bit brighter. There's a little bit more color, things like that in the scenes across the way, okay? That is by design, okay? Our filmmakers are saying, okay, we want you to really dive into the fact that they just aren't happy with the way things are, the first neighbors we meet, and then we see this exciting life being led through the windows across the way, okay? The lighting style, is it moody or is it bright, right? Is there a lot of shadows and light and dark areas, or is it a pretty bright and happy film, right? Rom-coms, anything lighthearted, some lighthearted dramas, they're going to be brighter films like, 500 Days of Summer. It's an older one, but that's a very bright film, right? Moody films, you're thinking of thrillers or very dramatic horror films, things like that. Take a look at the lighting in this particular film. It actually switches. Sometimes the environment is pretty bright, and then sometimes the environment is pretty moody and dark. Let me know if you think that that lighting change or shift is kind of paralleling the story, where they are in their story at the time. Okay. Is the camera objective or subjective? So is our camera in the scene with the characters as part of the scene, or are we kind of with our camera sitting back, like observing what's going on? Sometimes they put the camera in the set, like in really close to actors, and they do straight on shots where it looks like the actors are kind of talking right at the camera, but they're actually talking to the character that's right behind the camera, kind of thing. So that's something that kind of alters or changes, or trying to think of the best way to say this. By putting the camera in the scene, it can alter how we view the movie, right? Are we a participant in this thing, or are we an observer to this thing? All right. So hopefully that makes sense, but pay attention to kind of where they put the camera, giving you access to what it is you can see in any given scene. All right. And does the camera move, right? How does the movement help tell the story? So sometimes we'll like push in on a character at a very dramatic moment. Sometimes we'll pull away from a character at a very dramatic moment. Sometimes we'll come up and away of a very, you know what I mean? There are different types of movement. Sometimes we'll track along people as they're walking or running. You want to be paying attention to that movement and see if it influenced your emotional response to that particular scene or that particular shot. You want to pay attention to movement and see if it helps, enhances the storytelling, all right? So that's what we're going to do when we're talking about cinematography, okay? Next one up is editing style. Again, I apologize. This is going to run a little bit long, but there's a lot of information to get through. When we're talking about editing style, does the image ever change? So are we just looking at one shot the whole time? Okay, if you look at really older historical films, you might run into something like that. And if the image does change, how frequently does it change? Are they editing pretty quickly, or is it kind of slow? Is there very long shots before we get to a shot where they change our angle or our perspective of view of the scene? Okay. Can you pick up on a rhythm or pattern of how they're editing the sequences? Sometimes they'll slow scenes down by doing longer shots, and then they'll speed it up and pick up the pace of a sequence. A film like Jaws does a great job of slowing the scene down and then speeding it back up when they want to get the heartbeat going again. Action films do it all the time, okay? And do they use transitions or cuts? So I'm going to show you a little bit of a clip that has a dissolve or a transition, like a transition from one shot to the next. And then I'll show you a cut or a shot where it just goes cut to cut.
I wasn't doing anything wrong. No, you weren't. And please call me Roland. Besides, who knows what's right, what's wrong. It just occurred to me maybe you needed someone to talk to.
I'm tired of talking. All everybody ever wants to do is talk.
All right, so there was that clip. Again, there was like a transitional kind of dissolve from one little sequence to another, and then I showed you something that was just a cut where we went from one shot to the next. Using those transitions oftentimes puts us in kind of like a dreamier state, or oftentimes transitions like that where you kind of swipe or dissolve from one space to the next is like passage of time, okay? And so you might see that in this short film. Take note if you see any dissolves that are passages of time in our short film. Most of the time you just see traditional cuts though, okay? That's what you're gonna see. Our first film, let's see. I think we actually missed sound design in here. I think I did. Sound design. So are they using dialogue in the sequence? Some of the films that we watch will have less dialogue than others. The first historical film we watch is silent. They won't be using dialogue. So that's going to change kind of how we take in the movie, how we perceive the actors' emotions. Like, how are they going to deliver a performance without using dialogue, right? So how much dialogue are they using, or are they showing us a lot and not telling us a lot? That's a different style of filmmaking. Are they using songs, or are they using score? So are they using like kind of popular modern songs or famous songs as part of the soundtrack to the movie, or are they using what's called a score, a written, usually kind of semi-classical piece that is made specifically for the film, and it's part of the soundtrack? Like sometimes the Indiana Jones theme, right? That's a very popular sound. Jaws has a very popular soundtrack, like a sound that you would know. That's part of the score of the film, right? So does the film use score or popular music or song to help tell the story? And so check that out in our film. In this particular film that we're watching this week, The Neighbor's Window, they're going to use more of a score, not necessarily music. And in our first feature film, which is called Yesterday, we're going to hear a lot of songs and not a lot of score. We'll hear a little bit of both. All right. Also, are we hearing sound effects? Are we having this big environment where we can hear like the creak of the floors and the doorknobs open and close? And like, are we hearing things, even hearing things that we can't see, but we know that that would happen and we would hear a noise? Like, how enveloping is that sound design when it comes to the sound effects? In The Neighbor's Window, there's a scene where the mother is kind of nursing or comforting a child like really late at night, and she's kind of looking across the way to see if anything's happening across the way, and she doesn't notice the husband come out and kind of see her, and then he goes back to his room, and it's the door closed, closing. That noise kind of startles her. So you'll see that in the film. And that's like sound design, right? We didn't necessarily have to hear that sound. And if that moment wouldn't have happened, would the scene have played a little bit different? Because the sound effect was so important to that particular moment to have us read kind of where the characters were in that particular time in the actual story. All right. So those are things that you're paying attention to. And then, are they setting up kind of an ambient fill, right? Like if we're like on a downtown like New York street, do we hear the hustle and bustle of the street and all that, even though we can't necessarily see it? Sometimes you can make an audience feel like there's a lot going on around a person, and they could be standing there all by themselves and there's nobody around. But the sound design helps us feel like we are in this big environment. And you never know one way or the other unless they show you a behind the scenes kind of thing. So think about the whole picture of the audio. How are they using dialogue? Are they using score and or music like song to help tell the story and put us in a moment or a mood for the film? Are they using special effects and sound effects to kind of give us this full experience? And then are they filling in that environment? Are we hearing the world that they live in as well as watching the world that we live in? Some films will do a better job than in other films, right? So let's be thinking about that, okay? So anyway, I apologize for that. Now, our first film. Our first film is called, again, The Neighbor's Window. It's a 2020 short film. It's about 20 minutes long. It won the Academy Award for short filmmaking in that particular year. There is a little bit of a warning at the beginning of the film. There is some nudity, so hopefully that isn't offensive to you. You can kind of cover your eyes if you don't want to see it. It's nothing too gratuitous, but it is definitely is there, so I want to point that out. Things I want you to look for in this particular film, definitely pay attention to see if you can determine who is our hero, who's our central character. There is a central character, even though we're dealing with two couples, there is a central character, and I want to see if you can pick up on that and explain why you think this person is the main character, okay? What is our theme in this film? See if you can take this 20-minute motion picture and encapsulate in a sentence what this movie's message is, okay? What do you think it is, okay? And also, can you give me one visual that illustrates the theme for you, okay? So right here, I'm going to give you a visual that's from the film that I think encapsulates the theme of the movie. So here we go. So check this shot out. I think this image definitely encapsulates it, all right? So we're back. And I want to see if you can find other imagery in the movie that you think kind of helps encapsulate the theme of the film. All right. And that's part of what we want to do. The visuals of the film should accentuate and elaborate and illuminate the story even more than just the written word, right? Or the performances. So see if you can find any imagery that helps kind of tell us the theme in a nutshell kind of thing. Okay. So, you have a discussion board and 2 responses to make when it comes to the stuff in this particular module for this particular film. On your discussion boards, you want to write, there's going to be 2 prompts that you have to respond to that are for your post, at least 5 sentences that are your own words, not just AI gibberish that comes out. 5 sentences for each prompt, so that's 10 sentences there. And then your responses, each response should be at least 5 sentences. Give examples from the film, give examples from the lecture, tell us why you agree or disagree. It's okay to disagree with your classmates as well. You just want to do it respectfully and be kind and be positive, right? But it's okay to disagree. So that's going to be 5 sentences for each response. So your grand total is you're going to write about 20 sentences-ish. If you need more than that, then write more than that. I'm just saying minimum 5 sentences for each prompt and 5 sentences for each response to classmates. You're also going to take a quiz. It's going to be 8 questions. And modules 1 through 7 will follow this pattern. When we get to module 8, that's our midterm module. Things change up a little bit, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So again, this was a little bit long. I apologize, but we needed to get through all that info. And if you got any questions, please reach out, and I hope you enjoy the film, and we'll see you in module 2.